All right, we're back. Dan Labbe and Chris Fedor. Our live NFL draft coverage continues on cleveland.com. We're going to have Mary Kay Cabot on. We're going to have Terry Pluto on, and then we're going to get to the draft beginning at 8 o'clock. Chris, first of all, I got some fact or fiction for you.
Oh, nice. Let's do it.
For the next couple minutes. We'll work some of these in. Fact or fiction, the Browns will have a new wide receiver tonight.
Oh, tonight you say. I'll say facts. I think it's one of the top priorities of Ray Farmer. I think they tried to trade up 2 separate times last year from what I was told. Once for Odell Beckham Jr., another time for Brandon Cooks. Okay. Didn't work out. So I think they understand. They don't have a legitimate number 1 wide receiver. Dwayne Bowe's been on a milk carton since 2011. Brian Hartline lost snaps last year in Miami to rookie Jarvis Landry. So yes, that is fact. They will have a wide receiver at either 12 or 19.
You are not making many friends over in Berea.
What'd I do?
With the guys that are going to catch passes this year.
He didn't have a single touchdown last year.
I'm just saying.
He had a better quarterback than what they have right now here in Cleveland. Do you understand that?
I do understand that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying you're not making many friends. Todd Gurley, a guy you like.
No, I don't just like him, Dan.
The Browns will be in a position to decide if they want Todd Gurley.
Oh.
In other words,
yeah,
he's going to last till 12.
I think he's one of the prime trade-up targets for a team, knowing that they'd probably have to get in front of the Browns at 12, the Dolphins at 14, the Texans at 16, and the Chargers at 17. So if there are any visions of maybe let's wait till number 19 and get Todd Gurley there, I don't see that as a possibility. But I do think the Browns will be in a position at number 12 to take Todd Gurley. Yes, because I just can't see a team besides the New York Jets sitting there at number 6 that would consider him in the top 10. So many of those teams, Dan, that are drafting in the top 10 have other needs that go well beyond running back, and the talent that's going to be available in the top 10 match a lot of those needs.
How many teams do you think get nervous about that running back early thing that is happening in the NFL?
I think a lot of teams tend to get nervous about it, except if it's a premier talent. And you see teams make exceptions for certain positions. Look, Dan, there are teams in the NFL that don't want to use a top 10 pick on a wide receiver. They're willing to make an exception based on the talent that's available. There are teams that don't want to use a first-round pick on a running back. But if it's a 2 running back class and then there's a big drop-off after, and one of those guys happens to be one of the 5 best players in the draft, I think that team would make an exception for sure.
In the comments, Gurley equals this year's Fedor's man crush on Bridgewater.
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
I think in talking to you as we've built up to the draft, I think that commenter nailed it.
You know what's interesting? I could build a whole team of my man crushes in different positions too. In 2011, it was Julio Jones. I've been through the Teddy Bridgewater thing. Now I've got my running back in Todd Gurley.
There you go. You
now
built a pretty nice offense there.
Now I just got to find a defense.
It is better than Josh McCown and Brian Hartline, Terrence West.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Before we have Mary Kay Cabot on here, let's get to a broader one. Randy Gregory will get picked tonight.
Oh, that's fact. Absolutely. This guy's one of the most talented players in the draft, and I know he's a complete knucklehead. He's got some injury concerns. When he was a junior college player, he broke his leg. You have to take that into account. He's somebody who his weight has fluctuated. Like one day he's 235, the next day he's 220. You don't love that. You want a bigger guy that's flying off the edge. But if you just watch him play, he can help you on run defense. Just turn on the Wisconsin game when Nebraska was playing against Melvin Gordon in Wisconsin. So he can help you there, and he's relentless when it comes to getting after the quarterback. I think in terms of pure talent, Dan, he is the best pass rusher available. It's just some of that baggage is probably going to push him to the second half of the first round, but there's no chance that he lasts until tomorrow. None.
Okay, a question just came in on the running backs. So we're going to get that. I'm going to pose that to you after we talk to our Browns beat reporter, Mary Kay Cabot, who joins us from Berea. Mary Kay, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How you doing?
We're doing all right. Okay, Mary Kay. Earlier today on Sports Insider, we let you make your case for making the move to get Marcus Mariota. I'm assuming nothing has changed in your mind yet. You still want them to make that deal, but how are you feeling about that actually happening?
I've never been super confident that they would go as far as I think they should go. I really, all along, have thought that they don't want to give up the 2016 first-round pick. I don't think they want to do it. I think that they will have a conversation when Tennessee is on the clock. I'm sure they've already had some pretty substantial conversations by now about different things. But in the end, I don't see it happening because I don't think they're going to want to give up that 2016 first rounder.
Which player would you say is more likely for the Browns tonight if you had to put a percentage on it, Mary Kay? Trade up for Marcus Mariota, trade for Sam Bradford?
Oh, boy, you know what? I mean, I think it actually would be easier to land Sam Bradford. You could get him, even though the Eagles I think they need number 12 to get where they want to go. I think it would be easier to land Sam. So right now I'm going to say Sam.
Mary Kay, if they don't move up to take a quarterback, if they pick at 12 and 19, who do you think it's going to be?
You know what? I really don't know, obviously, for sure. But it just seems like there's a lot of sentiment for Danny Shelton. There's also a lot of sentiment for Devontae Parker. I think I'd rather go Parker there and then maybe wait and see if you can get a Shelton or an Eddie Goldman or Malcolm Brown with 19, something like that. And then also, I don't really see this as a serious option either, but I know they really showed a lot of interest in Kevin White. And they went to visit him, and it flew a little bit under the radar, but they visited him the night before his pro day. They had a meeting with him, and in order to get him, they would have to trade up a few notches to get him. So I wouldn't completely rule that out either, but I think they'd probably more likely stick around and try to grab a Parker at 12.
Mary Kay, a lot of conversation has been made about the running game here for the Browns. There were 8 times last year the team failed to get to 100 yards. They have 2 guys from last year, Isaiah Crowell, Terrence West, but they've also shown an interest, it seems, in Melvin Gordon and Todd Gurley. Do you think there's a chance that the Browns would go that way in the first round, or is that too high for Ray Farmer to take a running back?
You know, there's starting to be a groundswell of buzz about just that very thing, them taking Todd Gurley perhaps even at number 12. I've been seeing a lot of that. I've been seeing Gordon at 19. I personally think it's too high to take a running back. I felt that way when they traded up for Trent Richardson in 2012. I think that you can find good running backs later, so therefore I don't think you should spend a premium pick on one of them, especially not one that's coming off of a torn ACL. I think that running backs generally, they get beat up enough that you don't really want to start out with a guy that is coming off of a torn ACL. But it seems that there's starting to be some sentiment for that. So, again, I am not in favor of a first-round running back, but I could see them doing it.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, our Browns beat reporter, joining us from Berea. Busy 3 days ahead of you, Mary Kay. I'm sure we will talk to you again at some point later tonight or tomorrow as well. So thanks for the time.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot and Tom Reed will both be in Berea. Let me get to this question that was asked. It came in to the comments from a guy who goes by Dan's with a Z.
Why is like his name.
Why is Todd Gurley better than Melvin Gordon?
Honestly?
That was the question.
Okay. I'll just put it in a way that I think anybody would be able to understand it. Everything that Melvin Gordon does on the football field, Todd Gurley does better. Todd Gurley's faster. He's stronger. He's got better vision. He's got better breakaway speed. He does everything better than Melvin Gordon. And the other thing is, I'm a little bit worried about Melvin Gordon as a pass catcher. He doesn't have a lot of experience doing that. They didn't throw him the ball out of the backfield at Wisconsin. Todd Gurley can catch the ball out of the backfield.
All right. If you're wondering, Todd McShay has Melvin Gordon going to the Browns at 19.
At number 19?
Yeah, which is interesting.
I wouldn't hate
Seems
that.
Seems a little high. I mean, I don't know.
I think
2 running backs in the first round?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. Because I think it's just kind of like the quarterback situation. This year at quarterback, it's Jameis Winston, it's Marcus Mariota, then a cliff. There's depth here in the running back spot this year but there are two guys who are clearly above the rest, and it's Todd Gurley and it's Melvin Gordon. And there are a lot of teams, Dan, that are drafting in the middle to the late first round that could use a running back. I mentioned Miami at number 14. I wouldn't sleep on San Francisco at number 15. Sure, they have Carlos Hyde, used a second-round pick on him, but they're in the NFC West. It's tough. It's physical. They're going to have to run the football. That's their identity. The Houston Texans, they have Arian Foster. He's banged up, usually, probably on the downside of his career, at least approaching the downside of his career. Maybe they need a new focal point moving forward in the future. San Diego at 17. So there are enough teams in the first round that would make sense for a running back that I think both of them are going to go in the first round. But I think the gap between Todd Gurley and Melvin Gordon is about the same gap that exists between Melvin Gordon and the third best running back.
All right. Let's talk about those quarterbacks. We're going to have Terry Pluto on here in a few minutes. The quarterbacks, as far as that second tier, we know the names. Garrett Grayson. People like him because he ran that pro-style offense. Brett Hundley. People like him
because at one time he was looked at as a top 10 pick.
Bryce Petty. People like the stats.
Right.
But I think you and I both kind of agree that these guys, if you draft them late, they're just kind of guys on your roster.
Yep.
Maybe somehow they pan out, but more than likely, these are just going to be depth guys.
I would agree with that. And I think anybody that uses a second-round pick on a quarterback not named Winston or Mariota is making a huge mistake. I think any team that's going to use a third-round pick or a fourth-round pick on one of these quarterbacks is making a huge mistake, because I think you can still get a starter with the depth in this draft at certain positions. I think you can still get a starter in some of those rounds. And any quarterback, in my opinion, that you're taking beyond the top two is either going to be a backup or a practice squad guy. Do you honestly want to use a third or fourth round pick on one of those guys just hoping and wishing? What does Bryce Petty do that translates to the NFL?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
He plays quarterback.
Because he played at Baylor, and there's no way that you can really evaluate Baylor quarterbacks because they don't run any NFL concepts. So many people are talking about the transition that Marcus Mariota is going to have to make from college to the pros. The transition for Bryce Petty is way, way more steep than Marcus Mariota because they don't do anything at an NFL level at Baylor.
All right, let's go ahead and bring in our final guest here in our pre-show, Terry Pluto, joining us via phone. Terry, how are you?
Hello, Dan. I just wondered if you had called me so I could listen to things that the Browns shouldn't do.
Exactly. Well, this is kind of like our this is the Thursday night special edition of our Tuesday chat.
You know that Hundley from UCLA has never done a staggered snap count.
Yeah, we talked about that on Tuesday. Actually, that's.
How about that?
These quarterbacks haven't done a lot of things, Terry.
Hello.
All right, Terry, first question. Let's talk about Marcus Mariota. I know he's a guy that you like. How much would you give up for him?
I certainly would do the 2 picks this year and at least a second rounder the following year. I would, and I guess I have to really see what else. But if I would do the third, but I like him. I think I like his size. I like his arm. I like the attitude. I know it's going to take a while for him to maybe to be able to play some, but I know this, all these fans that say just get the other people around a quarterback. I don't want to see any other quarterback, period, come in. I don't want Bradford. I don't want Mariota, whatever. When they see about Josh McCown about week 4, I wonder how they're going to feel about it.
Yeah, that's...
And knowing that behind him are the group that's there now, not like there's somebody you're developing behind them, too. See, that's the other difference, at least for me.
Terry, if you had to put a percentage on the Browns using both first-round picks tonight, what percentage would you lay on it?
Exactly 12 and 19, that they wouldn't even trade down or anything like that.
Correct. Yep, 12 and 19.
Oh, I would say just 25%. There's going to be something with those picks. I even if it is like you take 19 and you go down or something like that. I really expect that. It just may not be the exciting thing that we would like, but I think they will do something.
Terry, Danny Shelton, Devontae Parker, Kevin White, all these names have popped up at number 12. If the Browns stay there, do you like any of them?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I like Shelton if you want somebody to play in the middle of the line and do this kind of thing. So A couple of the receivers are really interesting. I'll tell you this, if you're not going to do anything about quarterback, please really address receiver. Give McCollum and everybody somebody to throw the ball to besides the veterans. And I think don't discount a pass rusher, because that's a big thing for Pettin. He would rather, because even when he was in Buffalo, they were not all that good against the run, and it escapes me at the moment where they ranked, but I think it was in the bottom half. So in his mind, he'd rather give up yards on the ground and have that guy that harasses the quarterback and have a good secondary and everything. Because I know they were not happy at all with their sack totals by the end of last year, or even their, like, what they call those quarterback harassments and everything. They thought it was pretty low.
It's funny, Terry, because as we get closer and closer to the draft getting started, I keep flashing back to something that Mike Pettin has said since he came here. Something that he says that he values is versatility, whether it's offensively or defensively. And I'm starting to think, Terry, that Malcolm Brown, that defensive tackle from Texas, a guy who can play all over the defensive line, could be appealing to Mike Pettin.
It's possible. And, let's face it, Pettin and Farmer put their heads together and came up with Justin Gilbert last year. And they also put their heads together to come up with those guys in the second and third round that look much better. But, because people want to say, well, that was just a Pettin pick or whatever. Now, Farmer's a defensive guy, too. That was their pick. Jimmy Haslam didn't say, well, I want a defensive back from Oklahoma State. So that's their call. So they better figure out exactly what they want. And part of it was that, they love corner. But remember, Pettin has had 11 defensive backs when he broke camp with Buffalo in 2013, and 10 defensive backs on the roster. Now, I don't think they're going to take a defensive back in the first round, or I hope not. But that's something that could show up in the second or third round, too, just because he loves to pile those guys up. Remember, he likes defensive backs, he likes guys that rush the passer. And I do think Farmer, for the most part, is probably in that area, although I think he also a little concerned on the run defense. A thing Dan and I talked about on the podcast and I wrote about recently was, on the offensive line, Mitchell Schwartz is going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Not that he could just walk, but do you want to basically pay a ton for Mitchell Schwartz, or do you want to go out and get at least another lineman? Because, I think all of us are anticipating Mac. While he may not leave, if I'm his agent, I'm certainly going to throw him on the open market again and squeeze every dime out of the Browns. So I think that's why second or third round they're going to be looking on those linemen. But I'll say this, they've done a good job of having me confused. It feels like I've been waiting for the draft since I was like 12 years old, and I'm 112. And so senility is now set in. I have no idea what they're doing.
Terry, I'm going to pit you against Chris Fedor here, because Chris Fedor really likes Todd Gurley. And we've talked about it on the podcast. You don't think that's a route they should take?
No, I just don't like ACLs. That's all. I don't like them. For that, if I were going to take a running back in the first round, I'd take the kid from Wisconsin. But that's me. Now, if he didn't have the ACL, I'd think about it different. But it'd be just like saying if Sam Bradford didn't have the 2 ACLs. Well, if he didn't have the 2 ACLs, he'd still beat the Rams. So,
But doesn't that speak volumes about a guy's talent when the only thing you dislike is one injury?
Yes, but it's kind of like saying I don't like the fact that the pitcher needs Tommy John surgery.
Right, but ACLs are not the same as Tommy John, right? Adrian Peterson came back from an ACL.
The comeback
Jamal
percentage
Charles.
on ACL is if you need to Google. There's been a couple stories on ACLs. It's not great. It's like a 60% recovery thing for guys still being in the league 3 years after they have it. Now, you'd have to even dig deeper to see how many of those guys were all that good to begin with. But because he's a running back, Chris, that's the thing. Running back or defensive back or wide receiver, the ACL worries me more than, say, if he were a heavy-set lineman or even a quarterback. Because, they lose a little bit of a fraction here, a fraction there. It's harder to make up. But I'm serious at this point, and I've always confessed to you guys, football is not I'm not saying my favorite thing. It's where I feel the least sure of myself on evaluating players and so on. But I just, if I'm the Browns, I'm tired of guys that have been arrested a bunch of times. I'm tired of guys with medical red shirt. I just, and I don't want to, like Mike Pettin talked about, you just limit yourself to guys in the National Honor Society or, Older Boys. No, but I just don't want these huge red flags on guys when I'm picking. Now, if I'm lower in the draft, or if I were a good team, I could take more risk on this. I mean, you can't have anything. Part of the problem that happened when they took Trent Richardson is Richardson had a minor knee surgery in March, right before the draft in 2012. He came back, and then he hurt his knee again early in training camp, had a second knee surgery, came back and played 4 weeks and 1 day after that second knee surgery. And I believe we never saw the real Trent Richardson. So maybe I'm just gun shy after that because of the knee thing. But that's how I feel with knees and running backs.
Yeah, I also think when it comes to Trent Richardson, though, if we're looking at some of the reasons why he failed, and I agree, Terry, part of the reason why he did is because of all those injuries. Even went back to high school with him. He had ankle injuries in high school, but I also think he ballooned his way up to 245 pounds when he was in the NFL, and he didn't show any heart for the game of football until he was finally taken out of the lineup. So I think that's part of it, too.
Yeah, and clearly the combination of having knee surgery and gaining weight, I'm sure every doctor would recommend that.
No.
But I mean, you're also dealing with a bunch of young men who come into money for the first time.
Sure.
And frankly, that's what you're going to be dealing with Todd Gurley. He had the surgery, I believe, in late November. And, now remember, what these guys usually get is a very big loan from their agent as soon as their season is over. So they're advanced. They're almost starting to live like millionaires from about January on, even before the draft.
Yep.
And that gives them that feeling of a little bit of I've already got it made. And, I mean, this is not anything legal about this. I mean, it's just how the business works, And then they get drafted and so on. Now, how, will he be real dedicated? To me, it's just too much of a thing. But the Browns called his name. Also, I guess I would argue this. If I told you up front, and Dan and I talked about this on my podcast, that for Gurley's rookie year, he's going to gain 1,280 yards and score 12 touchdowns, would you take it?
Sure.
All right, well, that's what Crowell and West combined to do last year.
Yeah, but one of the guys had 3.6 yards per carry. I'm looking at a guy in Todd Gurley
they average 4. Together.
Right, together they did,
saying,
sure. I'm looking at one guy that I think can carry the offense, be the focal point of the offense, sustain drives, keep the offense on the field, keep the defense off of the field, all of those kinds of things. It's hard for me to pass up on that, especially in this situation, Terry, when you don't have a quarterback and you're trying to limit the responsibilities of your quarterback. You can't limit the responsibilities of Josh McCown and Johnny Manziel, in my opinion, with the combination of Crowell and West, because they're just not talented enough.
Well, you're limiting the debate to Gurley versus those two guys as opposed to looking at someone else.
All right. Terry Pluto, Chris Fedor. I feel like we need to have like the hockey handshake, after Game 7 or whatever in a hockey game. I feel like we
here's
need to
the thing:
is
Chris is better at this because he does talk radio, and I'm old and senile. Remember, I told you I'm 112.
No, Terry. No.
I mean, I'm so old. No, I couldn't even think of the kid's name from Wisconsin, whose name still escapes me, and I like it. Who's the kid from Wisconsin, Darryl?
Remember,
there he is.
Just remember it like this, Terry. A couple of years ago, we had RG3. Now we've got MG3.
Yeah. Too many numbers. We don't want any more quarterback. Nobody with like two letters and a number.
There you go.
Sorry, the other day Terry asked me to guess a batting average.
If they don't draft pretty soon, I think we are all going to be just taken away in a big net.
The other day Terry asked me to guess somebody's batting average, and the number was between 184 and 186. I guessed 182.
Yeah, he did. I think it was Michael.
So Terry,
Bourne's
it's not
batting
just you. All right, Terry, thanks for the time.
See you guys.
All right, we are going to take a quick breather here before the draft gets going. 8 o'clock p.m. We will be back with you right around 8 o'clock to get things going. Tampa Bay will be on the clock. Chris Fedor, Dan Labbe, and our thanks to all our pre-show guests. Of course, we'll talk to some folks throughout the draft as well. We'll have pick-by-pick coverage, Chris's analysis of every pick. Bud Shaw will join us as well. We got a packed, 3.5 hours coming up for you?
At least.
Keep it locked here at cleveland.com/Browns.